Welcome to the Women in Wellness podcast,
where we believe that the world can be changed one woman at a time.
Your journey to becoming more present, healthy, and joyous starts right now.
Alrighty, ladies, we got a treat for you today. We have Drew Manning, who is honestly one of the nicest, smartest, sweetest, kindest individuals that you can meet. And he's doing something probably in a lot of practitioners' minds very controversial, like why on earth is he doing this to himself? But he's actually doing it in a very powerful way that I think is spreading a whole lot of knowledge, information, and giving a lot of hope to a lot of people. So welcome, Drew. And why don't you tell us what it is you're doing and why you're doing it?
Yeah, so as you guys know, my brand is called Fit to Fat to Fit for a reason. Actually, I did this back in 2011. So this is my second Fit to Fat to Fit experiment where I'm intentionally gaining weight. And the first time I did it, it was to gain a better understanding of what it's like to be overweight for the first time in my life. I grew up in shape. I wrestled and played football since I was a little kid. So I was always in shape. I was always healthy. I was always fit and never once struggled with food addiction or cravings or being overweight. I had no idea. And then in 2009, I became a personal trainer. And here I was, someone who had never been overweight a day in my life, trying to help people who had been overweight pretty much every day of their life. And there was an obvious disconnect. I couldn't understand why it was so hard for them just to put down the junk food and go to the gym. I'm like, it's so simple, you guys. You just do it. Like, don't eat the junk food, eat healthy food, go to the gym. Like, why is it so hard? And then I decided to do my first Fit to Fat to Fit experiment, putting on 75 pounds in 6 months on purpose. And it was way harder than I thought it would be. And I was truly humbled. So that was my first journey. That was my first experience. Learned so many valuable lessons from it. And then here I am almost a decade later, revisiting this journey. But this time around, it's to deliver a message to the fitness industry. And that is a message of empathy for those that struggle. And this is a vehicle, my Fit to Fat to 40 experiment, which is what this one's called, is a vehicle to deliver that message because it's an industry that lacks empathy, in my opinion. It's very judgmental. People who are larger, who are overweight are judged as lazy or less than, and they're put down. And people think it's so simple. They think it's so easy just to get skinny and get fit. And there's a lot of judgment and hate. And it's like, why can't you just do this? And I want to bring more awareness of the mental and emotional side of transformation that people don't understand until you've walked a mile in someone else's shoes. And so that's kind of what this whole journey of doing it again is about, is to bring that awareness. But then also, as you can tell, I'm breathing heavy just talking. I've turned 40 this year. And as we all know, people are like, oh, it's harder. My metabolism's changing. My hormones are changing. It's a lot harder. And so I want to put that to the test and do it again as a 40-year-old and really inspire people to join me on that journey back to fit.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
I love it. Yeah. And, like you were saying, there's the breath. There's so much judgment that happens from the outside world. And imagine the world that we would live in if we all did that, and not maybe this experiment, but put ourselves in that other person's shoes that may be going through some pain period in their life or suffering with whatever they're suffering with. And having that compassion and empathy, I think, is so important. Not only is it important from the outside world, but I'm concerned about the inside world, our own patterning that comes up. I remember after giving birth to my second, and I was taking a bath, and I looked down at my body, and there was such a disconnect. Like, I couldn't believe that was my body. And it just, because like you said, you get used to being a certain way and you're fit and you're doing all the things. So I'm curious about what that is feeling like for you. And if you're feeling disconnected from your body, or are you feeling pretty good with like understanding what's happening?
That's a really good question. And let me compare the first time to this time, because that time in 2011, I wasn't as self-aware as I am now. And back then, my identity was my body. So I was Drew, the fit guy in my mind. And once I became overweight, like even 10 or 20 pounds, I was so uncomfortable. Like, I freaked out, like wanting to go explain to people that I didn't even know, like strangers in public, like, hey, I'm not really overweight. This is just an experiment. Like, go to my website. Like, this is how I normally look. Like, my body image was my self-image. And so I had a freak out moment during that first experience. And I was more obsessed about who I was at the time. I was more obsessed about my body, looking a certain way. This time around, I have different tools. I've done a lot of personal work. I'm older, I'm wiser. I've built up that self-awareness, and I have tools to help me become more of the observer of my thoughts rather than attaching myself to my thoughts. So things like meditation and positive affirmations and journaling have really helped me to take a step back and not attach myself to my body as much. So I'm not as obsessed, but there are moments where I catch myself feeling a little bit self-conscious, like being out in public. I'm like, man, I love the feeling of being healthy and being fit. Like there's something, a part of that will always be part of my identity, but it's not nearly as troubling as it was the first time around. Like this time around, I have that self-awareness that helps me get through these hard moments where normally I would be very self-conscious, very attached to my body image, and just super uncomfortable. Like my ego was driving me back then. Now I can put my ego in check. And but I'm not trying to say that this is easy. Like doing this a second time it's way harder than people think. If you see my TV show on A&E, we put other trainers through this process. You see them go through this humbling process of their ego kind of dies, and they have to it's like an ego death in a sense, where they go through this process of purposely gaining weight, and they freak out, they're uncomfortable, they start crying, they're more emotional. And then at the end of it, they're at least more appreciative of their health and their body. And for me, the mental and emotional side of all of this is what's the hardest to deal with. But that's my hope, is to bring awareness to people that are watching this to understand how much of transformation is mental and emotional. It's way more than we think. It's not just calories in, calories out, getting skinny, getting fit, having muscles, and then your problems go away magically. It's way more of a mental and emotional transformation than people think. And that's what I'm trying to bring awareness to.
Love it. Can you, because I want to definitely touch on what you're experiencing now, because you're doing things very uniquely to try and bring perspective about, I'm going to use this term very loosely, lifestyle choices, like how people choose to eat.
Yeah.
And you did 1 week of my biggest pet peeve, so we'll definitely talk about that one.
For sure.
But can you touch on last time when you did it, when you went back to fit? Can you talk about your experience with going from eating the standard American diet, like whatever you were eating, and give us like a little bit of an idea of what you were eating, to when you switched it over and started eating healthy? Can you give us like an idea of what that was, so that, people who aren't going through that can have a better understanding of why it's so difficult for individuals to make that shift and get those results?
100%. This was one of the biggest lessons I learned. It was a very eye-opening experience when I went through that, because here I was eating 5,000 plus calories of standard American food that was highly processed carbohydrates. So like cinnamon toast crunch for breakfast with toast and juice. And then for a snack would be a couple granola bars and a soda and chips. And then for lunch was like peanut butter and honey sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, like 3 of those with, some more chips and soda. And then a snack was, more processed carbohydrates, maybe some Pringles or Doritos. Chocolate covered granola bar or something like that. And then for dinner was white pasta, marinara sauce, meatballs, garlic bread. And then before bedtime, dessert, cookies, ice cream, another bowl of cinnamon toast crunch if I was lazy. And that was a typical day. And I had people email me during that time saying, Drew, you eat exactly the food that I eat. But why? Like, the reason is because this food is so affordable and cheap. It's cheaper than real food. It tastes really, really good. It's designed to be hyper palatable so that we become addicted to it. And it's super convenient. Like, people in our society, we want the path of least resistance. So we gravitate towards convenience foods rather than, cutting up the meat and the vegetables and cooking it. And it takes time, right? And we were just like, oh, what's quick? What's easy? Okay, this has calories in it. Fast food, pizza. It's just easier, right? And so those are 3 main things that create an uphill battle for people trying to make a lifestyle change. And then when I transitioned to eating healthy again, this was very eye-opening for me. I thought my body would be happy, would be excited to eat this food again, but I was wrong. Like, it was as if I was addicted to a drug, and then I tried to get off of that drug. My body went through these horrible withdrawal symptoms, kind of wanting me, pushing me to eat that junk food again, if you will, because it had some kind of a high from that for the past 6 months that it was so hard to let go of. And this is why I was like, man, this is what my clients have been telling me. Like, it clicked for the first time. I couldn't understand why my clients just couldn't put down the soda, put down the junk food, because for me it was super easy. But then when I did this and I tried to transition to eating healthy again, the emotional connection to food is way more powerful than we think. And it's very similar to drugs. And, you wouldn't go up to a drug addict and be like, what's wrong with you? Just stop doing drugs. It's so simple. You just don't do them. And then, it's not that we think it's not that difficult unless you've been addicted. And so for me, this was really, really powerful for me to kind of feel that for the first time. And it helped me to develop empathy for people that struggle with emotional eating, because whether it's food or drugs or alcohol or sex or porn or distractions like social media or movies or TV or whatever distraction you choose, we as humans gravitate towards those things to help us numb the pain of some type of stress or trauma or challenge in our life. And those kind of substances distract us or numb the pain temporarily. And that's why we gravitate towards those types of things. And for different people, it looks different. Like I said, it could be food, drugs, alcohol. But that's where I realized, man, transformation, especially when it comes to emotional eating, that emotional connection is way more powerful than we think. And that's the key to helping people live a healthy lifestyle. It's not willpower. It's not discipline. For most people, that doesn't work. It's honestly, I think, healing that trauma or that emotional challenge that you're experiencing or have experienced since childhood that you haven't fully released yet. And until you do, it's whether it's going to be food or something else that's an unhealthy substance or addiction to, it's going to continue as a diet until I think you truly heal it, and then it becomes more of a lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm. I love that you're bringing light to that. I have a saying, how you digest life is how you digest your food, and vice versa. And I do think that relationship with food has so many different elements to it, so many different layers, whether it's cultural, whether it's comfort from maybe remembering that grandma made me this like cake when I was upset. And now I want that same feeling again because I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling lost in this world that we're living in today. And, for me growing up, I dealt with anorexia. So I'm very aware of that relationship with food. And for me, it was a lot about control, not having control out of my outside environment. So I was trying to control this environment with food and, sending a message to the outside world with that. And so I saw a video of you yesterday with your girls.
Yeah.
And one of your girls was saying, I think the younger one, that I want to do fit to fat to fit, and I love how you're just so open about this topic with them, because it's really going to give them this sense of ownership of their body and their relationship with food. So I'm curious how you're navigating that, because not only women deal with this and young girls, but young boys as well. And, you sharing the emotional process that you're going through as a man, I think for us women is important to understand as well, because sometimes we're just focused on women going through this food relationship.
Yeah, thanks for letting me talk about that. That part of the journey I was really worried about that part, because my girls are older this time around versus back in the day, they were 2 and like a newborn when I first did my first experiment. Now that they're 9 and 11, they're more aware. Of course, they're going to want the junk food that I'm eating because it's in the house. So before I started, I sat down with me, my ex-wife, my girlfriend, who we're all friends, by the way. We all get along really well. And I wanted to do a sit-down conversation with them to help all of us be on the same team of like, okay, how can we do this to help them not have an unhealthy relationship with food after this? Because I don't want them to see good food and bad food. I want it to be more about health and being strong and feeling good, rather than about, my belly getting bigger and getting fat. Like, we try not to use the word fat at all. And so that body image, especially at their age, is really important. So I feel like we did a really good job of trying our best to constantly remind them of why I'm doing this, what's the purpose of this. And look, when I eat this food, it's not about the food being bad, but the consequences that come with eating that food constantly are this, and this. It's not just about having a big belly. And I'm also trying to get this across to the masses, people watching this, is eating this food doesn't just affect your fat in your body. Like, if that's all it did, that actually wouldn't be that bad. But it carries over into so many other areas of your life. Like, they notice that I'm more irritable, I'm less patient with them, I'm sleep deprived, so I'm sleepier throughout the day, have to take naps. I do snap more when I'm like sleep deprived and I'm, maybe hangry a little bit, or it carries over into other areas of your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, sexually. Your motivation throughout the day. If your testosterone levels are off as a man, you're not the same version of yourself. Like, I haven't started crying during commercials yet, but I do notice myself getting more emotional, and people don't really see that connection, especially with sexual health too. They're like, oh, I just take this pill and that'll fix the problem, versus maybe if I change my lifestyle, like if I stopped eating this food and stopped being sedentary, maybe it would carry over into other areas of my life. And so that's what I'm trying to bring awareness to, is eating this food, living this way doesn't just affect your midline. It affects you in so many other ways that you probably can't even imagine right now. But it's all starts with food, in my opinion. And so it's been really cool to navigate that with my daughters. And hopefully, right now with what I'm doing, obviously they want to join me, they want to eat the food, but then on the journey back to fit, they'll see what eating healthy does, firsthand, to see me do that transformation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that you incorporated them into this decision so that they can see, this is dad before eating, keto. You have that amazing keto cookbook, going to the standard American diet, and then what that's going to look like when you switch back to your healthy lifestyle choices, keto, whatever that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And are you finding it more difficult this time around, going through and doing these lifestyle modifications?
I would say it's so interesting. Like it's more difficult than I remember it being. Like I'm like, before I started the journey, I'm like, yeah, I got this. I know what to expect. But there's been some humbling moments. It's easier in the sense that I'm not as attached to my body image like it was back then. And I think that's why it was so hard for me back then. I was super self-conscious, low self-esteem, because my body image was my self-image. So it's easier in that sense. But man, there's so many eye-opening experiences and humbling experiences this time around that I kind of just forgot how hard it was mentally, emotionally, physically. And I think the hardest part for me was that first month, my sleep was awful. So I'm tracking all my sleep data on my Whoop app, my HRV score. Like I didn't have one night of, in the green sleep since I started my journey that first month. It was all yellow or red. And honestly, I think it's because I started drinking beer at night, which is, what a lot of American males do, is a couple beers, 2, 3, 4 beers at night. And my sleep just was awful. And then I would wake up sleep deprived, needed more caffeine, more stimulants to stay awake. But then I would get these huge spikes in blood sugar levels. And then I would be super sleepy during the day, have to take naps. And then at nighttime, I'd try to lay down, and then I was restless and just had awful sleep that first month. And man, it reminded me of like when I had my first kid, my first baby, and that experience of like not sleeping through the night. I'm just a different person. I really
still have PTSD from that.
Exactly. And so I was like, man, this is exactly what it feels like, where I'm like, I don't know who I am, where I am, what's going on. Like I'm just in total survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, you don't put a lot of effort. It's hard to be present. It's hard to be present in the moment. It's hard to become the observer of your thoughts, because you're just so reactive. You're so reactive to every emotion, every trigger that happens. And so this is what I'm trying to bring awareness to, is that's what people go through when they are in an unhealthy state, physical state. It carries over to the mental and emotional side of your interactions, your relationships. But it all stems from our physical health, in my opinion.
Mm. And, when you look at the history of Kellogg's, so you had brought up how all of this affects so many aspects of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Processed food was created to lower libido, right? To really contain men's libido. And the reason for that is because it lowers your testosterone. It's increasing the wrong kind of estrogen. And so I'm curious, your girlfriend, Julie is her name?
Mm-hmm.
How are you guys navigating this within your relationship? And she seems really on board and supportive. And like, are you guys just open to having the conversations, or has this affected your relationship in any way?
Yeah, we're open to having those conversations. It's been way harder than I think both of us anticipated. I think it's been harder for her, especially because I remember that first day I started, she went for a hike that morning and came back and was just bawling her eyes out. She's like, I won't have you, my partner, to be able to go on hikes, bike rides, walks, doing yoga, working out, going to the gym together. I won't have you for 4 months. And so it is harder for her. The sexual stuff is another thing I want to bring awareness to. Is I kind of prepared her. Actually, my ex-wife kind of prepared her too, talking about what to expect and what not to expect. And I just said, hey, look, like this is a temporary thing. Like my libido will be lower. We'll have to get creative and, just don't give up on me. Like just realize that this is a temporary phase and it'll all come back eventually. At least that's my hope. I am older this time around, but I am meeting with a doctor regularly. She's going over my sex hormones to kind of show what's happening. And I don't want to take anything, synthetic right now or to artificially boost anything. Because I just want to show people this is what happens. And this is kind of the natural course of if you live this way, this is what's going to happen to your sexual health. And everyone wants to have a good sex life. I don't know one person that's like, man, I just don't want to have any libido and I don't want to have a good sex life. Like everyone wants that, and I'm trying to bring awareness to the connection between this and that. And so we have struggled in a sense sexually because my libido isn't there. I'm more emotional than I normally am. It's not awful. I wouldn't say it's awful, but I think this time around, at least I'm not as self-conscious like I was back then. I remember back then I would have my wife at the time turn the lights off, because I didn't want her to see me naked. But this time around, I have more fun with it, to be honest with you. And Julie's great. She doesn't care. Like it doesn't bother her, to be honest with you. I think women are less visual for the most part, right? Not everyone, but she's not as visual. And so she's more about the emotional connection. Like if we have the emotional connection, it doesn't matter if I have a big belly or not.
Yeah.
Well, good news. You have a plethora of doctors that when you're going back, how to rebalance everything. So
Yes.
I don't think you have to worry about that. And myself, and I'm sure Dr. Sonia have seen, men in their 60s and 70s who have been dealing with long-term, lifelong struggles with lifestyle and with, being overweight and then having other metabolic issues, being able to rebalance them and see a completely different lifestyle from doing it. And that goes with women too. It's not just men. So what is it that you're hoping? Because I know that you're doing this for two reasons, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Drew. You really want individuals who are struggling with making the right lifestyle changes, putting down the pot, putting down the processed foods, switching over to the greens and the waters and, making healthier lifestyles. You want to connect with them and let them truly understand why everything they're experiencing can really realistically be linked back to the food they're eating. But on the other side, you're hoping that healthcare practitioners will be more empathetic and compassionate when working with those individuals, helping them get on the right track and helping coach them so that they can be successful. Is that right?
Yeah. In a nutshell, I would probably change a few of the words in there, but that's in general, that sounds right.
So what is it that you're wanting to come of you beating your body down for 4 months?
Honestly, like I said, the first time I did this was truly to gain that experience of what it's like, because I've never experienced it. This time around, I've learned those lessons. I kind of know what to expect. This time around, it's almost a vehicle to get the attention of people following along this time around, because let's be honest, 2011 social media wasn't what it is today. So the opportunities we have to consume this content nowadays with social media being what it is, it's more engaging. You guys are like, I saw your story, I saw what you ate, that's crazy, and you're telling your husband or whoever, like, hey, did you see this, did you see that? It's creating a conversation to hopefully at the end of the day people will start to consume my content and see my messaging of bringing more awareness to the mental and emotional side of this, and the importance of empathy, especially now in 2020 with everything that's going on. This world needs more empathy now more than ever, and I feel like this can be a vehicle for that change, specifically in the fitness industry, but hopefully it carries over into other areas of people's lives. If you can learn how to develop empathy for people who struggle with their weight, maybe then we can develop empathy for people who see through a different lens than us, politically, religiously, just in general. I feel like, man, if at the end of the day there's a few more empathetic people in this world, then it's worth it for me, because I feel like that carries over into other areas of our life where we're not so quick to judge people based off of one social media post or based off of the t-shirt they're wearing or the color of their skin. I feel like if I could get a few more people to develop some empathy through this journey, which is a vehicle to get my message across, then I feel like it's a win. I think the beating up of my body, I've kind of compare it to doing my 100-mile run a few months ago. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
I did.
That was beating up my body too. Like, that's not healthy for your body. But I feel like me and my body have this agreement of, let's do some hard things. Like, I'll treat you good eventually. Like, just bear with me here, and it's going to be okay in the long run. Temporarily, it's going to suck for us. It's going to be hard, but let's do this together for the greater good to create some positive change. And sometimes it takes something crazy, you know, because we've all seen Biggest Loser. We've all seen these TV shows where people go from morbidly obese to skinny and fit, and that's inspiring still and always will be. But maybe something a little bit crazy like this catches people's attention, and then at the end of the day, motivates them, inspires them to see things through a new lens, through a new perspective. And then maybe something will click for them, like, oh, this is what I was missing. This mental and emotional piece that I didn't really see before. This is why I'm emotionally eating all the time. This is why I'm triggered to distract myself and numb myself. So if I could bring that level of awareness to a few people, for me, it's worth it in the end.
I love it. And you were also on What We Crave, which is relaunching.
Yes.
So people should definitely listen to that summit and follow you for sure to get more of that. What were you going to say, Dr. Sonia, before I?
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to, I love that you're bringing awareness to the times that we're in today, and how more compassion and more empathy is just going to make our world better. And especially for our kids, because they're watching everything that we're doing. Yeah. And one state or emotion that I think a lot of us have been sitting in is grief. And on a personal level, when you're going through such a process with your body, that body that identifies your ego, and the one that is your vehicle that allows you to experience life when you feel like it's not working for you, there's like frustration, there's resentment, there's anger, and there's also grief. So I'm curious to hear from you what you maybe learned from your first experience, or maybe with this one, around that emotion and working with others, and how you can kind of help them through that part with their relationship with their body.
Yeah, actually, it mostly came from after Fit to Fat to Fit, and it actually came from my own personal experience of hitting my own rock bottom, if you will, where I had to discover who I was outside of my body, outside of my marriage, because I went through a divorce, outside of the religion I grew up in. Those were three big things that were my identity. And I think losing those was the hardest thing, but also the greatest thing I could have gone through, because that's where I learned these life lessons where I can now help people so much more effectively, was going through those experiences, and I think one of the biggest lessons I've taken away is hurt people. And when people are hurting, they lash out at other people. Everything in this life is a mirror of how we see ourselves. So I grew up as a kid hating who I was, because I wanted to be perfect so bad, and there was a lot of pressure to be perfect, and I wasn't, and I couldn't deal with that imperfection. And so the way I dealt with it was beat myself up even more. More discipline, more self-hate will lead to more righteousness, will lead to more holiness, and not making mistakes ever again if I just beat myself up even more. And it's kind of like a men's mentality of the way society or culture or the religion you grew up in puts on you. And so that's the only way I knew how to deal with things, until eventually it broke me. And I guess where I'm going with this is I want to help people become more aware of where their hurt and their trauma comes from, where it stems from. And if you could go back and connect the dots and see from an observer standpoint where all this started, where all of it happened, then I feel like it's easier to let it go and release it. But if you suppress it, push it away, pretend it doesn't exist, that's where eventually it controls you and owns you, to the point where you lie, you wear a mask all the time of who you truly are, because you're so afraid of being judged, you're so afraid of what other people are going to think of you. And like Brene Brown talks about stepping into the arena, the critics don't count once you make that step into the arena, but it's scary as hell. It takes a lot of courage, but that's where true transformation is going to happen. It's not this diet or this supplement or that workout program that's going to save you. Not even getting the body that you want is going to save you, until you face these demons, if you will, and honestly talk about things that maybe have brought you shame or guilt. And the less you talk about them, the more power they have over you. But if you learn how to release it and finally talk about it, you realize that it has less and less power over you. And then from there, you don't need to wear a mask. You can live life authentically. And that's where self-love starts to develop. And once you operate out of a place of true self-love for yourself and what you've been through, that's where you start treating your body with more kindness, because you're worthy of it, because you deserve it. And it's not for the results. It's not to get the body, but you start feeding your body real food because it feels good to you. It is good for you. And to move your body and exercise and work out isn't a punishment anymore. It's because you deserve it and you truly love yourself. And then from there, you start to fall in love with the process because you love your body and you want it to feel good all the time. And then guess what? The results take care of themselves over time once that switch happens in that person's brain and their perception is shifted. That's where true transformation happens. So hopefully all that makes sense to you guys and your followers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You're singing our tune.
And that's hard to, I'm like out of breath.
Deep breath.
Just talking
Yes.
I used to be able to talk so fast, and now I'm like.
I'm going to send you some breathing exercises.
Okay.
Since he's not exercising at all.
Yeah, you got to do some breath
work.
I
do still meditate. I still do journal, and I would be fine with breath work as long as it doesn't burn too many calories.
Right.
Well, so no breath of fire.
No breath of fire for you then. Okay. Got it.
That's amazing how you put it, because honestly, in this day and age, all of us struggle with inner demons, whether it be from childhood or our own perception or what somebody told us, that we internalized as being true. And, what were some of the things that you did to work through all of your preconceived notions about who you were or who you needed to be, so that you are happy with who you are, you're happy in your own skin, and you're not allowing your ego to take over this time around?
Yeah. So it started by doing things that were out of my comfort zone, right? So being open to trying something new. I think that's what hitting rock bottom does, is it puts you in a place of like, okay, I can either stay stuck here and blame the world, blame this person, blame myself, blame whoever, and stay stuck here, or I could become a better version of myself. And to do that, I need to use different tools that haven't worked for me in the past. And so for me, the thing that pulled me out of that was being a dad and being a father to my 2 daughters. And that for me, that was like my why of why I didn't want to stay stuck in rock bottom. So I was like, okay, I want to show up as the best dad I can be. What do I do? My actually ex-wife mentioned a life coach. She's like, hey, I booked you an appointment. I would like for you to go see this life coach. She helped me. I'm like, okay, I'm open to that. Versus before, I was very prideful about that. I'm like, no, religion, all I need. All I need is this and prayer, and that will save me. But at this moment, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. So I went to it. Most life-changing experience I've ever had, where I started to see myself through a new lens. I started to see hope, a light at the end of the tunnel. Then from there was working with a therapist. Then from there was reading books, which I never really grew up reading books, but reading books by Brene Brown, Ryan Holiday, Byron Katie, meditation. I was like, okay, well, Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan talk about this. Maybe it's something I could try, right? And so I was open to trying meditation. It was life-changing experience as well. Positive affirmations. Used to think we're stupid. Like why would I say positive words about myself when no one's around? Like it seems so corny and cheesy, but one of the most powerful things I've ever done. Then journaling, then gratitude list, then going on long walks in nature, being alone for the first time, like facing myself in a sense of like, I hated being alone in the past. Now it's like, I started to develop that self-love. And I'm like, you know what? I like being by myself. I like spending time by myself and getting to know the true version of myself. So for me, it was those kinds of things. I could list the books that really helped me. One was Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Then Rising Strong. Mm-hmm. I recommend Daring Greatly first and foremost. Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Ego is the Enemy. The 4 Agreements. The Obstacle is the Way. You're a Badass by Jen Sincero. All these books just helped me shift my perception of who I was and how I showed up in this world. And then from there, meditating, doing positive affirmations, doing a gratitude list were things that really helped me over the years own my story and embrace vulnerability as a strength. And for me, that's kind of what it takes for people, is not using the same tools that haven't worked for you in the past. Like if you're stuck where you are, and you're like, well, this isn't working for me, that isn't working for me, be open to new things that you've never tried before to help shift your perception of your situation. It doesn't change your situation necessarily, but it shifts your perception of your situation. And if you could do that, then you don't have to suffer as much.
One of my favorite things is the only thing you have control over is your reaction over the situation. So how you choose to react is really what's going to dictate the outcome of that situation. And you just listed off like most of my favorite books and Dr. Sonia's favorite books. You Are a Badass is a great, funny, easy read, but it does hit home.
It does.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is there's such simple tools and so profound. And, you know, I always say what you do like every day makes a huge difference in what you're doing just once in a while. So that commitment to yourself and really finding out who you are beyond the voices, beyond the beliefs that have been passed down, beyond all of that, and really hearing that whisper that we so ignore and are afraid of, because that whisper is going to tell us the truth. And sometimes we're afraid of what the truth is going to, how it's going to show up in our lives. So I love that you went through that journey, because that not only affects our entirety of our relationships, but also when it comes to making these lifestyle choices, right? So when you're watching or looking at the world from a certain lens, and maybe you're just vegan, or maybe you're only doing keto, or maybe you're only doing this way, you start to like get tunnel vision of like, this is the only way, or there's a certain way to do it. So I love that you're actually bringing awareness to even those different types of lifestyle choices and how those can also go wrong.
Oh,
so maybe
I
you can
love that you're going there, because that's where I wanted to go next.
Yeah, like I'd love for you to describe some of your weeks that you've had. I know you're on week vegan right now with Dirty Vegan. So just maybe just what brought on that inspiration of wanting to separate this and bringing awareness to like the dirty keto, the dirty vegan, and all the different lifestyle choices.
Yeah, so doing this the second time, I felt like I had a chance to really make this way more impactful than the first time around, and to make it more engaging, more entertaining, more inspirational, more motivational for people. And so I was like, let's do a little phase, because I'm a big keto person. I love the keto diet, but just like any diet that becomes popular, I feel like there's a healthier way to do it and a less healthier way to do it. And so like I see people all the time like, oh yeah, I'm keto, so I'm eating butter, bacon, and cheese all day long, and like whipped cream and like all these sugar-free like diet sodas and energy drinks. And yes, technically you can do keto that way. Yes, technically you can lose weight that way, but is it healthier for you? And so that's what I really want to show people and educate people on, is the pitfalls and mistakes that people make when they do keto, paleo, vegan, or vegetarian. And on this journey of gaining weight, I'm exposing the kind of dirty side of how to do it. And then on the flip side, in January, I'll revisit them and educate people on the right way, the healthier way to do it, so that they have different tools. So if they want to try a plant-based diet, if they want to try paleo or keto, here's the healthier way to do it if you want to get the most benefits out of it, and if you actually want to improve, and actually if you want to improve your health. And so that's kind of the purpose of this second half of the journey, or this part of the journey, is to, right now I'm on Dirty Vegan Week. I've already done keto and paleo, which, do you guys want me to break down the differences I've noticed so far?
Yes, please.
So Dirty Keto was full of a lot of low quality dairy, like lots of string cheese and cheese on everything, cheese on my eggs, cheese on my burgers, literally cheese for every meal, with nuts and seeds at every single meal, like roasted in vegetable oil or canola oil, salted cashews and almonds and macadamia nuts, and then also low quality meats like pepperoni, salami, lunch meat, the fattiest ground beef you could possibly find. That's the cheapest. And eating just a ton of those foods, and like sugar-free creamers and sugar-free energy drinks and diet sodas, and pretty much all these foods that are convenience foods, and lots of keto cookies and keto ice cream as well, because that's what I see people eat. The interesting thing about Dirty Keto, though, was at least the biggest thing that I noticed on the positive side was I didn't get these big blood sugar spikes, which was like totally saved me. My sleep finally improved. I finally slept through the night, had 4 nights in the green that week. And then I didn't have these huge spikes and crashes in energy that I had the first month. So those were the positives. Also, and this, I wouldn't say this is a positive, but on the scale, I ended up losing 2.5 pounds, right? And going from 1,000 grams of carbs per day to 50 grams of carbs, obviously there's going to be a loss in water weight. And I think that's probably what it was, because if you look at my other measurements, I gained 1% body fat that week, and my waist, I gained 1.5 inches in just my waist and my belly alone. So that's what I'm going to show people, is weight is not the end all be all when it comes to measuring success or measuring if you're getting healthier, whether you do dirty keto or not. Because people are like, oh, look, he lost weight on keto. Yeah, but he also went up in body fat and gained 1.5 inches in his waist. And then when the blood work comes back, we'll see what that did as well. So anyways, that was really interesting. Paleo week paleo was interesting because it's more about the quality of the food you're eating. So there wasn't a lot of like dirty paleo foods, if you will. It was a lot of paleo bars, like made with honey and, lots of sugar. I ate tons of fruit. So it was basically fruit and meat, like fatty meats, and lots of like nuts and seeds as well. And you can't drink soda really. So I drank a lot of kombucha with added sugar or whatever was in it. And then lots of paleo bars. So there wasn't like a ton of like dirty, paleo food, but it was all whole foods. My digestion was actually pretty good that week. My digestion was better than the week on keto. My sleep wasn't as good as keto, but I did put on 4.5 pounds that week, which was interesting, but only gained 0.4% body fat. And my waist I only gained 1/4 inch that week. So not as much as when I did dirty keto. This week I'm on dirty vegan, which is super simple to do a dirty version of it because you saw me eating Oreos for breakfast, right?
Yeah.
So Oreos
and
are
then
vegan.
Twizzlers for lunch.
Because this is the thing is I know you guys don't know a lot of people that eat this way, but I think some people gravitate like, oh, and I'm Googling myself, is soda vegan? Is Cinnamon Toast Crunch vegan? Is this or that vegan? To kind of make sure like, okay, I can have this, but I can't have this, right? There are some sodas that aren't vegan, I've learned. It depends on how strict you want to get, right? Like certain ingredients that are processed in a plant where there's milk and eggs, there could be some contamination there. There's certain ingredients that are tested on animals. And so you can't have like Mountain Dew because Yellow 5 is tested on animals. And so it's just really interesting, but there is a dirty way to do it. So it's all carbs. It's pretty much all carbs, like very little protein.
I saw nothing green on your plate when you were showing your plates for that day.
Vegetables.
Like there was nothing green. There's no vegetable at all.
You're carbitarian is what you are.
Carbitarian, yeah.
It's so true.
And,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so I'm like 95% plant-based. I'm not vegan, but so just seeing it from that lens, I was like, well, I was talking to Caitlin earlier. I'm like, who eats like that? Like what vegetarian eats like that? Because you would assume that if you're moving into that lifestyle, you want to become healthier. Yeah. But when you don't have a foundation of what that's going to look like luckily growing up Indian, we had a lot of vegetarian food and a lot of it is vegetable based. So I come from that lens. But when I was watching you, I'm like, who eats that many sweet potatoes in one sitting? With those burritos and all and it's like you said, convenience, right? So people are busy. So when they're looking for like healthy options, they're looking at, it just says vegan. So they assume it's healthy and then they grab it from the freezer and that's dinner that night.
I think vegetarian next week is going to be even worse because it's the same junk food pretty much. It's just no meat, right? So you can have milk, you can have eggs and butter in the ingredients. So now you have a whole new world opened up to you versus now I have to make sure that the pasta, there's no eggs in the pasta or there's no eggs or butter in the bread. Like now I can have honey. So like it's just no meat. And the girl I worked with, she's a plant-based nutritionist. She coaches people on vegan and vegetarian. She's like, look, I see a lot of people do this all the time. They gravitate towards bread, pasta, rice, grains, cereals, like, cause there's no meat in it. And it's just all carb heavy foods. Yeah. But not a lot of nutrient density. And that's kind of what I think I'm hoping to bring awareness to on the journey back to fit when I do it the healthy way.
I love it because I've had this conversation with many a vegetarian vegans. And when they find out what I eat, because I don't do grains 99% of the time, any grain, I do very little legumes, but most of my plate is vegetables. I do high quality animal protein. But when I talk to them, they're like, well, how do you live on that? I'm like, what do you mean? What? Because their plates don't really contain the vegetables. And I'm like, but how are you vegetarian or vegan when you're not really consuming the vegetable component and you're just replacing the meat component with carbohydrates?
Exactly.
So I love that you're bringing that to other people's attention. What have you seen with going dirty vegan?
So I haven't done any blood work or measurements yet. Tomorrow's my first weigh-in, so we'll see how much weight I've gained. I have noticed my sleep has kind of slid back down to the yellow. I think I've had one night in the green on vegan so far, but that's pretty much it. But I get these huge spikes and crashes in blood sugar levels. Like yesterday I did a pasta food challenge and I went up to 187 on my blood sugar levels, and then dropped down to 60 afterwards, and I was getting the shakes and I needed something really quick. It's so interesting. My digestion is not good. Like, hopefully this isn't TMI, but a lot of loose stools eating this many sugary carbohydrates versus paleo and keto is actually really good, like, the way it should be. And so I've noticed that. It'll be interesting to see my blood work and my body fat percentage and my weight this week. I'm curious to see if my muscle mass, even after just a week, or actually next week will be vegetarian too, eating way less protein than I'm normally getting in, to see if I've lost any amount of muscle mass on the body composition test.
Oh man.
Wow, what a journey.
Anyways.
It's pretty amazing. And I do hope everyone follows you and sees what you're doing and really learns from this experience, so that, we can really honor what you're doing for all of us and bringing this awareness and light to everyone, especially that mind-body connection. Because without that, like you said, we could do the right things, we can eat the right way, we can take the supplements, but if that old belief system is still there, the patterning is still stuck there, we're not going to have momentum forward. We're always going to go back. So I think those pieces are so, so crucial to your journey, and just you being the leader in your family with navigating this for your girls. Like, I just so appreciate you doing that, because I think that conversation needs to happen with all our children about relationship with food, because it's so important.
Yeah.
Well, and I thank you for bringing the attention to, it's not just about the weight. The food choices massively affect overall function, whether it's how quickly your brain responds, meaning like, do you have brain fog? Do you have clear thinking? Your reaction, like being more irritable, your sleep, your energy, your sex drive, all of those have taken a massive slide in the negative by making a massive lifestyle change for what you are currently doing. So when is it that you are flipping and going back to fit? Like, when does that start?
Yeah, I'm counting down the days, minutes, hours, seconds, everything. So like December 27th is my 40th birthday. So that's the day my journey kind of technically stops. But I don't actually start until January 4th, which is that first Monday of 2021, when I know the whole world's going to want to get rid of this year and start over, like, all right, new year, new me mentality. So I am inviting people to join me on that journey back to fit starting January 4th. Or I'll do the journey with them. Like, I'll hold people's hand every step of the way. I'm kind of at their level or even worse or better compared to the person, but still I'm starting at the bottom of the mountain because I haven't worked out for 4 months. And that week before, December 27th through January 4th, is a mental preparation week. So that's where we're going to start to train our mind to do small things that are hard, so that come January 4th, we can then do bigger things that are hard. So we'll start by making our bed every single morning, taking a cold shower for at least 60 seconds per day. And then from there, a gratitude list of 3 things every single day, meditating for 5 to 10 minutes a day, positive affirmations, 3 to 5 things about yourself, and staying consistent with that through that week. And then from there, then it's going to come time to exercise. Then it's going to come time to meal prep and eat healthy food. And we'll do that together. There's power in community. There's power in numbers doing it as a team. And so that's kind of my hope, my invite to the world, is to join me on that journey back to fit. But you'll also learn the tools of how to shift your perception of what success looks like. It's not about getting the body. It's not about getting skinny. It's about operating out of a place of self-love, so that you're worth it. You feel worth it to live a healthy lifestyle consistently, instead of, putting up with the process of eating healthy and exercising in hopes that one day you'll get the results. Now it's just doing the process because you love yourself and you're worth it to live that process and that lifestyle change. So that's kind of what is going to happen when people join me on the journey back.
Oh, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Until then, I got to go eat.
Yeah.
Okay, Drew.
Until then, you feast.
I got to go eat some Oreos. So
yeah.
So give us 2 more minutes, and then you go eat your Oreos and your Gatorade and whatever else.
Twizzlers.
Yeah, Twizzlers.
We like to ask just a few questions, like fun questions at the end, and Sonia will finish it up with a very enlightened question.
Let's do it. Okay.
What's on your nightstand?
A picture of me, my girls, a book called How to Heal, something about trauma, How to Heal Trauma. It's a really good, powerful book about the connection between trauma and how it carries over into other aspects of our life. I should know the name of it, but it's a really good book.
Awesome.
What else? Yeah.
What is your pump me up song?
Oh, right now, my pump me up song is, hold on a second, I can pull it up on my phone really quick because I don't want to butcher this. It is, do you guys like, and this is probably a weird question, but do you like any EDM music?
Niles listening to it.
It's like robot music, right? It's
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
I was like, what is that?
But my friends call it robot music. Where is it? It is called, I can't find the name of it, but okay, I apologize. It's EDM music right now, but I'm not listening to it because I don't get pumped up anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I need to save that for January. So right now it's like relaxing music that makes me hungry, you know? So anything about food.
So McDonald's commercials, those types of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. What is your favorite healthy food and what is your favorite unhealthy food right now?
Okay. Favorite unhealthy food right now, because that's on my mind right now, obviously it's easy, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But I Googled it. It's not vegan technically. There's some ingredients in there that are kind of controversial, so I can't have it. So I would say right now, my favorite unhealthy food, and it's all about context, right? There's these things called boba bars that are freaking amazing. They're made with oats and sugar, and they're just super moist, and I can eat like 3 or 4 of those per day. My favorite healthy food, that's a good question. Poke. I love poke. I could eat poke for days.
Yum. What is your favorite beverage?
Unhealthy beverage?
Sure. Go unhealthy and healthy.
My favorite unhealthy beverage right now would be, actually, I'm enjoying Dr. Pepper more than Mountain Dew this time around. Something about Dr. Pepper, the 23 flavors or whatever, is really, really good. I would say my favorite healthy drink, I guess sparkling water, because it's the closest, or Zevia. I would say Zevia because it's the closest thing to real soda. But I've noticed my taste buds, I've had Zevia, it's not as good as what I used to think it was. I'm like, man, this tastes just like real soda. And now that I'm drinking real soda, I'm like, damn, this doesn't taste like real soda.
Mind has been blown.
Yeah.
Good to know. So when I have clients go, this doesn't taste anything like it. Okay.
Yeah, you'll understand why.
And Dr. Sonia, how do you want to wrap up this amazing?
Yeah. So my question for you is, there's a big why in why you're doing this, and you share that with us. And if you knew that tomorrow was it, and what is the imprint that you want to leave on this world, and especially for our next generation?
Honestly, it would be 2 things. One, the importance of empathy, and empathy will change this world forever if every human can learn to develop empathy. But also for the fathers out there that are dads, heal your pain, heal your trauma, heal your hurt, so that you break the cycle and stop passing that hurt and that hate and that pain on to the next generation. And that would be, I guess for all parents technically, but those 2 things would be the thing that I would leave as a legacy behind.
Thank you. Beautiful.
All right, Drew, just tell our listeners where they can find you and how they can join you come January.
So Fit to Fat to 40, fit number 2, fat number 2, 40 or FORTY.com is my website. It's free to sign up, enter in your email address. You'll be notified when I go live or when I have post a new video or when the journey back to fit starts, and you could follow along for free. Meal plans, recipes, workouts, grocery lists, all that stuff will be emailed to you for free. And then all my social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok are fit number 2, fat number 2, fit.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for all you do.
Okay. We'll see you guys next time. Hopefully we'll do this again when I'm more fit.
That's right. We will. Looking forward to it.
If you've been enjoying the Women in Wellness podcast, please take 2 minutes to subscribe, rate and review on iTunes.
This helps more women find the podcast to get the information they have been searching for.
This way we can truly change the world one woman at a time.
Remember, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook,
where we're sharing information with women every single day.
Join us next week for another episode of Women in Wellness.
And as always, thank you for listening.